I'm Sue Morgan, Executive Director and Acting Joint CE at Design Council. For the second year running, we're really pleased to be headline sponsors for the Festival of Place and the Pineapple Awards. Our experience in research shows that well-designed neighbourhoods and places have a transformative impact. The spaces between buildings, the blue and the green in the grey, creating fantastic places to live. This is why we are pleased and excited to sponsor the awards for excellent placemaking and place design at the Pineapple Awards this year. Please join us to celebrate the role design can play in helping us live more happy, healthier and sustainable lives.
So hello and welcome to the Pineapple Awards for the first half of the judging of the Place in Progress category. My name's Christine Murray and I'm the founding editor-in-chief of The Developer and the founding director of the Festival of Place. The Pineapples are all about celebrating best practice, and awards are a powerful way to recognize the ambition and realization of great places. So we're grateful to the Design Council who have sponsored these awards since their inception and continue to support us this year. These awards are about the quality of the spaces created between the buildings and success from the citizen, resident, tenant, or customer's point of view. The pineapple is a traditional symbol of welcome in architecture in the UK, and that's one thing we believe great places should be: welcoming. The pineapples are judged in 2 or 3 parts, depending on the category, which involves reviewing the application and visiting the sites. And the final stage is always a live presentation to the judges, where they have the opportunity to ask our pineapple candidates about their ambitions for the project. The finalists have 10 minutes to present their project, and then there'll be a 10-minute Q&A with the judges. So in this segment, we're going to hear presentations on King's Cross by Robert Evans, CEO of King's Cross, Aberfeldy, with Ben Foulkes-Jones, Project Director of EcoWorld London, and Malcolm Ward, Project Director of Poplar Harca, and Brooklyn Square with Ben Ruston, Head of Development, and Charlotte Gee, Development Manager for Places for People. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Robert to join me on stage, and we'll have our first presentation.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm Robert Evans from Argent, and I have the privilege of being CEO of King's Cross. And this is how King's Cross looked when I joined the project, actually in 2001, but it hadn't changed much from this photo from 1999. And rather than describe it myself, I thought I'd read you a quote from Ed Smith, who wrote about King's Cross in the New Statesman a few years ago in 2014. He said, "In the mid-90s, when I often caught the train out of Cambridge, King's Cross was known for 2 things: a dirty, decaying station and prostitutes. Every minute spent waiting in the station, enveloped by grime, felt like a minute stolen from you. I cut each journey as fine as possible. Better to have to run for a train than to kick your heels around the concourse." Of course, that's changed massively in recent years, and we've been part of that. And this is King's Cross pretty much today, not quite today. Obviously a major change. And just again, back to Ed Smith, because I often find it's easier to quote other people. He said it's been transformed from a grim commuter necessity, somewhere that had to be endured but was never enjoyed, into a place where you'd be happy to waste time. 67 acres of what was industrial scrub, disused railway hoardings and empty Victorian warehouses are now home to, amongst others, Google and Central St Martin's College of Art and Design. The transformation shows the power of confident planning, long-term thinking and proper public transport. Here's to that. The phasing has been interesting. It started with creation of the boulevard leading north from the stations, and a collection of redevelopments around the Granary building, and in particular the new home for, as just mentioned, the University of the Arts London, and some other public facilities, some affordable housing and some student housing. So a real mix to start off with, and then we've confidently moved both north and south and west, and the whole scheme will be finished in around 2025. The reason we're in for this award is that we're not finished yet. The principal public realm is all done, but in terms of building, we've got 1.5 million square feet still under construction, and we have another 750,000 square feet left to start. And we're very busy. We're spending over £1 million a day on construction at the moment. One of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that the early vision we set out in early consultation documents, this one from 2002 on the left, has been delivered, in fact, probably better than we dared hope. And back in 2002, we didn't know about the University of the Arts going into the granary. We didn't know about the land uses. What we did know was what kind of sense of place we wanted, what the feeling should be as you came into Granary Square. And then we've used a combination of judgment and skill and obviously luck to hopefully arrive at that, and I would say possibly exceed it. So there's just some images of the University of the Arts, a hugely important first tenant, really. It set the tone, the King's Cross being what I think it is today. It's world class in hopefully everything it does, but it's never stuffy, it's never corporate, and it's never boring. The public realm has been a hugely important part of our programme. There's 20 new streets, 10 new public spaces, a real mixture of planting. In some respects, you don't get the sense of that mixture here. There's a lot of informal planting as well as more formal spaces. But it's this which has made King's Cross safe and clean and welcoming to a broad selection of Londoners. It's now on the map. People come here at weekends. It's a place, and the public realm has done that, and it's made connections and links between King's Cross and surrounding areas. And it becomes the stage for all sorts of events, whether those are small-scale events, family events, outdoor cinema, or huge set pieces like the Festival of Light that you see bottom right, which you might see featured in the video towards the end. An increasing focus on children and families. That's been really important in the last few months, as North Londoners and all Londoners actually have used King's Cross as a safe, clean park, effectively urban park. And we've welcomed many people who've come to King's Cross, seen an uptick in visitors, particularly at weekends, actually, in some respects, from our local hinterland over the last few months. King's Cross has also drawn us into new areas. I call it beyond real estate. We set up a school and we run the school. I'm chairman of governors of King's Cross Academy, and that's drawn us into all sorts of areas beyond real estate. In recent months, we've been focused on remote learning and setting up a food bank and obviously supporting a much wider community through that school. It's been a really tough, actually, understanding and running a school. And just one example of how we've been dragged willingly into new areas. We run our own energy services company. We work with a range of charitable partners. So you can see our Skip Garden project top right, where Global Generation ourselves have found a way of using urban skips to grow food and work with local children. We run our own construction skills centre, as well as our own King's Cross Recruit, our job brokerage and matching services. And these are all set up from a philosophy in the Section 106 that we shouldn't just write checks and deal with intergeneration issues that way, but we should get involved, and that the place and the people running that place should be an active part in on-site provision and really be an important provider of urban services. And that was set out in that document there, Principles for a Human City from 2001, which I helped write, and more recently set out in a document that we wrote called Authenticity, called Learning the Art of Making Places. And I do believe it's an art and not a science. This is a quote I'm going to, before I start the film, just leave you with from Rowan Moore in 2014, who's written a few things about King's Cross. And he said that King's Cross is now about half complete, and obviously it's moved on since then. It's the most substantial fulfillment yet of an idea that the best way to transform an urban area and to improve the lives around it with facilities and investment is for commercial development to take the lead while working closely with local authorities and local communities. Now that is what we've done. I can't pretend that we set out to create a new model. Rowan talked about it being a sort of de facto municipal development corporation. I am very proud, we are all very proud of the way we've worked with Camden and Islington and a range of local communities. And I do think we have found a way of developing King's Cross with a virtuous circle of making a very valuable development for us and our investors, but actually the way we've worked with the surrounding areas and a part of that surrounding, a part of the city, has made our own place more resilient and valuable, but also helped transform King's Cross into a much better place today. As I said earlier, King's Cross was never regarded as safe and clean. That was the biggest issue that local people raised in early consultation. Of course, they also raised ideas about jobs and facilities, new services and so on. Health facilities and leisure facilities were quite towards the top of the list, and those have come forward. But safety and cleanliness and transforming King's Cross into a safer, cleaner place without losing its edge, without becoming a kind of bland place, was the sort of overriding message from 4 years of hugely complex consultation. I think we've delivered on that. I don't think the King's Cross development is yet complete. As I say, we still have quite a long way to go, but it's definitely got a sense of place. There's definitely a King's Crossness to it, and we're hugely proud of how it looks and sounds today. And with that, I shall hopefully start a short film that condenses 20 years of change into about 1.5 minutes. So I have about a minute left, I think. So just let's just say a little bit of what you saw there. You saw at the beginning some early pictures of just as we started development back in 2007, 8. You saw some pictures of the school, which I chair, and also Frank Barnes' School for Deaf Children that we're co-located alongside. You saw some of the pop-ups and some of the temporary events and some of the permanent events, some of the change, the phasing, the way that we've used phasing to mark time and mark the growth of the place, and some of our early retail and other facilities across the King's Cross estate. It's always good to finish early, so I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. I am very impressed with your presentation. That was an incredible amount of complexity and content that you put into there. So well done. I'm going to invite the judges to the stage now to join us. And it was really nice to see some of the work that you've been doing during the COVID crisis. So thanks for sharing that. So introducing Francis Gannon from Make Architects, Catherine Noir from Historic England, and Julian Tullis from Contain should be joining us as well. So perhaps we'll kick off with you, Catherine. I mean, you know, King's Cross has got a mix of old and new. It's kind of a good place for a starting point when we're starting looking at that transformation.
I didn't even mention the historic buildings. I didn't have time.
Oh, I spotted them. Yeah, thanks for a really good presentation. And it was interesting to see. You know, I've obviously spent quite a lot of time in that area myself, waiting for trains, and it was interesting to see how it developed. I'm obviously interested in how you decided when you set out down the road of your master plan for the area. How did you decide what to keep, what needed to go? Was that forced upon you, or was that a conscious decision that that's part of the place? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, nothing was forced on us. I mean, we obviously had a look at all the previous schemes. I mean, what I didn't mention in the video was before we came along, King's Cross was a bit of a developer's graveyard. There'd been a number of major schemes that had come forward and floundered. And we were very aware of that, and the bad blood in some respects between development community and local people. And a lot of that was around historic buildings. And also a sense that, you know, everyone was in a different place. English Heritage, as it was called then, had written various documents about King's Cross, one of which referred to it as the Victorian city in microcosm. And that's what we were left with. But that document actually kind of pushed at keeping everything. And there's a lot of it, and there was even more then. And there was a strong conservationist movement of local people in Camden. We knew that we had to make some changes. I mean, King's Cross was effectively designed as a place for goods, and it faced northeast. And we had to turn it into a place for people that faced in every direction. And that meant making some changes. It meant taking away the Culross building, creating the boulevard. It meant, we came up with the idea of moving the gas holders to be part of the grouping along the canal, so that the goods yard complex, rather than the more bitty, fragmented set of different phases in the south. Now, actually, it's quite easy to do on CAD. You just pick up 3 circles and move them north. It turns out to be a lot more complicated in real life. But nothing was forced on us. Obviously, there's an element of negotiation here. We spoke to English Heritage. What came through very strongly was the overall collection of the buildings that was important, not any particular detail. They're actually pretty robust structures. We wanted to be imaginative with those buildings and not go down the kind of, glass top kind of approach, which is sort of very, very common. I think St. Pancras helped. It had a very confident European style. It was bold in its transformation. It was confident in its juxtaposition of old and new. And I thought we learned a lot from that. But we also had been to lots of places and learned from our own developments that these buildings are, they're part of the sense of place. It's very, very difficult to create a layered sense of place with all brand new development. I mean, Potsdamer Platz shows you that. Paddington, in many ways, I believe, shows you that. It's really hard. Actually, if you can use these older buildings, they're very expensive to do, but they sort of root the place in its evolution and use that as a power for the new place. And I think we're really keen to that. So we were a willing participant in the idea of keeping as much as possible. But obviously we knew that some things had to change. Culross had to go. We had to get rid of the western goods shed, which is where the gas holders are today. We had to fiddle around with a collection of Stanley buildings to allow Pancras Road to go straight along the side of the station, because it used to loop round the German gym and the Stanley building in a ridiculous loop. And we had to open up the front of the German gym and so on and so on and so on. And these seemed like obvious moves to us. They were hugely controversial. We ended up in the High Court because one local group challenged some of those changes and sought to bring the whole scheme down. We always knew that was going to happen, but we had fantastic support from English Heritage and from Camden. I mean, English Heritage's lead officer at the time, Paddy Pugh, came to the planning committee and spoke in favour of the scheme. And I think that's a massive testament to the system that we have, actually, that we can have a plan-led local decision in favour of change, as complicated and powerful as that, with support from the statutory body and support in the end from the local council. And it didn't have to, whole scheme didn't have to go into a big public inquiry or anything like that. So I think it shows how our system really can work if the actors get together. I know this is a long answer, but I think it's important. I do think we were lucky in the sense that we were third or fourth or whatever it was. I think the fact that there'd been previous schemes and attempts to redevelop the site took the edge off some expectations. Everybody thought, I think at the time, that we had to solve it this time, that we were the right developer in the right place at the right time. And that is why I think, to an extent, English Heritage and others stepped up to the plate and helped. Okay.
All right, Robert, that was a fantastic presentation. It's fantastic the way you summed up all those years into such a short, concise presentation. So thank you for making it so clear. I'll declare a kind of an interest. I think King's Cross was one of the last places that I physically visited before lockdown, and enjoyed what's described in your submission as a bit of lifestyle shopping, slightly more consciously. Is it sustainability and consciously in Coal Drops? So, look, I mean, it's difficult to fault it. And I also love the fact you're submitting it for a place in progress, because, I don't think anywhere is ever finished. And there's many people that would go to King's Cross and just always think about those great spaces and places that you've created. So, I'm going to ask these two questions in the context of actually being totally impressed by what you've done over the years. So I hope you don't take them in the wrong spirit. I think it's very interesting that having this flexible framework of a master plan has allowed you to take these opportunities for different anchor tenants as and when they arose. Mm-hmm. And I think, the Granary, Central St Martin's, University of the Arts is the classic, isn't it? And it's well documented, the story about 2009 and the economic recession, and nobody wanted an office in a Granary building, and lo and behold, Central St Martin's probably became the better anchor tenant to draw people into the heart of the scheme. So I think it does show the benefit of having this sort of flexible approach to you. So there's two questions. Do you feel the same about all of your anchor tenants? And I suppose I'm particularly thinking of a big one with the G, and what challenges that's created on the kind of the great walk up the Kings Boulevard. So that's one question. And the other thing is, I think you're also really well known for the meantime and meanwhile uses that you've implemented at King's Cross. And there was one particular one which was very, very popular, which was, of course, the wild swimming
Pond
arts
Club
installation. Yeah, and I wondered if you had ever thought that there were meantime or meanwhile uses which were so successful that you'd wished you could have found a permanent way to incorporate them into the final place.
Okay.
Two mischievous questions, but it's just in the context of such a great presentation, really.
two great questions. So on the first, I mean, just firstly in relation to UAL, I mean, we never really seriously contemplated putting an office tenant in the granary. I mean, we didn't write UAL into the application. There was a range of options for that building, one of which was D1 education space. So we had an inkling, but no one sensible in development writes world-class art college on their master plan and banks on it coming forward, because there aren't too many of those to the pound. So we had a number of ideas, but what we knew was it had to be something that had some sense of civic, and it had to be something that helped bring life to the Granary Square, not just 8 to 9 and 5 to 6 during the weekday. You know, we knew that there had to be a relationship between the use and the square. As soon as we met the University of the Arts and we had a discussion with Stanton Williams, their architect, about abandoning Red Lion Square and maybe coming to King's Cross, we just knew that there was something very powerful there. And we knew even more that the first day we opened and we saw urban life spill up the boulevard, the temporary boulevard at the time. In terms of Google, I mean, what we have done, I think, the financial crisis did force us to change our model. The original model was borrow loads of money off the land value, build a whole estate speculatively, build it and they will come. Own everything, sell nothing, sit back in your armchair by now and, you know, hopefully it'll be finished. We couldn't do that. There was no money for infrastructure. It was no money for anything really. So we had to recycle the equity we had and the borrowing we could do through the scheme in many ways. And we knew that to get the scheme moving, we had to do some long lease deals with occupiers to bring in effectively more money to help forward pay for the infrastructure investment. But what we didn't do was sell land to other developers. And what we didn't do was sell plots to anyone that approached us. And there were many, I can assure you. We stuck to our guns and said, okay, we do have to change our model slightly, but let's only go with people that are going to be owner occupiers and bring something positive to the estate. Now, UAL obviously tick, tick, tick. We did the same with Camden Council, who have done, you know, helped bring the leisure centre and the pool and the other facilities together in 5 Pancras Square. We did the same with Google, and we did the same with, at the time, BNP Paribas, who were meant to move into 5 Pancras Square. They since haven't moved in, and guess what? Google are in there as well. Google do bring a lot to the site. I actually think that building is going to be fantastic. I think it's taken a long time to design and deliver it, but I think it's going to be amazing. I think it will be better than the original idea we had of 5 separate buildings and a terrace. And I think it does create some challenges now that we've all got used to the sky as you walk along the boulevard, and that's gradually filling in. But I think what Google are going to be able to do, and we're working with them on this, is do something really imaginative at the ground floor. And they're thinking really hard about, you know, what retail means in a post-COVID world, and what they can do there, and they have the power to do and the financial muscle to do, is something completely different to the retail that we've got on the other side of the street and in Pancras Square, and do something that really taps into, I don't want to say too much, but taps into the new zeitgeist and comes up with a completely new offer. And
Robert, I need to jump in because I want Francis to get a question in, and your answers are beautifully elaborate, but also...
so Google, yes, Google will do something amazing on the ground floor. On the meanwhile uses, I mean, most of them I'd love to have kept. They've all been great. The various, you know, Christmas trees we've done. The Pond Club was great. Shrimpies at the filling station. There's been loads that we'd love to have kept. But the whole point of those uses is that they should leave you wanting more. And so we've had to sort of steel ourselves and stick to our guns and make them meanwhile uses. But there's been many, including the Pond Club, that were more successful than we ever dreamed.
Francis, come in.
Hello, very quick final question.
I do apologise.
As this is the place in progress category, I just wondered if you could speak a bit about how you see the place evolving over time and how you build in opportunities for change and adaptability and resilience over the life of the place.
Yeah, so we're still building. As I say, we got the Google building is going to be a major building to yet come forward. The other major changes, there's one along the canal, which is currently the corner of York Way and Goods Way, which is currently a temporary building, originally the marketing suite for gas holders. Then it was Chapel Down used it as a sort of bar and restaurant. It's now going to be something else. So that's one plot. And then there's a collection of plots around Cubitt Park in the north, both offices and residential. We're about to start our next residential phase called Cadence, which is at the top of the park by Alison Brooks Architects. So there's lots of buildings left to come. There's also in that zone to the west of Cubitt Park a new public space to come forward there. We're going to do something quite different there. So with new street connections to link it all together. And then there's a triangle site, which is the only piece of King's Cross east of York Way, where we're working with Argent Related, our separate sort of partnership with related companies from the US on build-to-rent housing. And that'll be a new foray for King's Cross with purpose-built, proper sort of BTR investment. I know Julian's done that in spades, but this is our first foray into that land use at King's Cross. So still quite a lot of things for us to work on. I mean, the place itself is now pretty mature. I think what we've now been selected as the partner for St Pancras Hospital to build that out, working with the Camden Islington NHS Trust. So what that does for us is create a real opportunity to how do we link those two things together? How do we create complementary offers? What can we do there with smaller footprints, a different grain that provide some of the complementary uses and floor plates that we haven't managed to do at King's Cross and sort of fill in some missing pieces. So I think for us there's a real excitement in how do we look at the hospital site and the King's Cross estate together and look at the interaction between them. How can we make 2 + 2 = 5?
I'm going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much, Robert, for your presentation and judges for your comments. Judges, if you can switch your camera off, and Robert, I'm going to send you back to the audience, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Hi, Malcolm.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you both quite well. So Ben Folkes-Jones, Project Director from Eco World London, and Malcolm Ward, Project Director from Poplar Harca. Are you guys ready to go?
So have a look.
That looks good. Best of luck.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Aberfeldy Village. I think we're going to start really with Aberfeldy Village is a partnership. And I think this is a key theme that we want you to take away today, is two companies who have very explicit values and pillars to the way they work. And they've come together here in East London to regenerate an existing community on the ground. So I'd just like to say that it's our vision with Eco World to really go beyond just the built form and look at community regeneration in all aspects, and that the start and key of this process was about it being a residential-led process, and that without engagement and without the community embracing this regeneration, there was no way we could call it a success. I'll just ask Malcolm just to say a couple of words as well about the partnership.
Yeah, I think, creation of place for us. So Poplar Harca is an organisation that is very, very firmly rooted in its communities and has its residents at the heart. And for us, creation of place is an extremely important part of what we do. But creating a place on the scale of Aberfeldy is only doable with a partner that shares our values and understands our place in the community and why our community is so important to us. So we are 10 years into this partnership, and we are about to enter an exciting new chapter of it. But at the core of everything that we've done to date and what we plan to do in the future is that very strong partnership with both Eco World, but also with our existing residents who live and work in the Aberfeldy.
So we asked the community, And we said, well, what do they want from this regeneration? And our stakeholders and our businesses and their local businesses. And we crystallized these down to a set of place pillars. Now, these values, these pillars will drive every aspect of the regeneration. And you can see them on screen, but really proudly made of East London. Be proud of our location. It's East London. It's a vibrant, diverse area. And we should be very proud of having the opportunity to redevelop here. Be creatively made. Build on that long history of creative industries that exist in East London and really make that the soul and character of our regeneration. Live well. East London or this particular area of East London has particular health problems, and what can we do with the built environment and with our activation of these spaces to create opportunities for people to live well and access the outdoors and exercise more easily. And celebrate community. Again, as we've said before, the heart of this is about, there's already a community there. So we are building and regenerating this community. They have to welcome us, they have to embrace us, and we're creating a new community that is the old and the new coming together to build something good together. So Malcolm, if you just want to say a few words about how far we've come to.
So we've come a long way, and to date we've created 678 new homes, mixed tenure, so a mix of private sale and social rent, shared ownership, and also private rent. So a truly mixed tenure development. A spectacular new park that runs through the spine of the development to date, which was always very important in helping to create that sense of place, but even more so, I think we've realised over the lockdown period that the ability for our residents to have quality open space on their doorstep that they can utilise has been incredibly important. And we are moving on to the next slide. We are in the process of delivering what perhaps is the most important phase of the current master plan. So the commercial hub, which is going to be home to a new health centre and sort of working on our themes of healthy living. We are working with the existing GP practice to ensure that that facility is right at the heart of our community and delivers exactly what the community needs. It'll be home to a new neighbourhood centre, which will be a hub for local activity and help to create that sense of place. It'll be a new civic square with retail and food and beverage opportunities that will really help to reinforce that sense of place and community. And again, that will be underpinned by more mixed tenure residential development. And is due to complete during the course of next year and early the following year. And by the time we're finished there, we'll have created 900 new homes and a significant new facility for our residents and the locals.
Okay, you may recognise a couple of these photos. So this is the existing Aberfeldy Street reimagined. And this is part of our meanwhile use strategy. So this sits just north of the current construction site and is the existing local centre. It was looking a little tired. As you can see, we decided to give it a little lick of paint to brighten it up, but it goes beyond just that physical intervention. We wanted to give people a feel for what's to come, excite people about the future, and engage with local businesses. And I'd like Malcolm just to talk us through the Start Here programme, which is really at the core of our approach here with the commercial heart of this regeneration.
So as Ben says, we've obviously the street was tired and has had a very significant facelift, and that has generated a lot of media coverage, and which is all great in terms of raising the profile of the development. But for us, it's much, much more than that. It really is about creating an opportunity for our locals and our residents to bring their businesses back to life, to introduce new businesses into the area. And we are providing what we think is a pretty innovative Start Here program, which allows new businesses and existing businesses to work under very favorable terms to establish their businesses. We are supporting that with business mentoring and business advice, and the long-term dream here, the real dream, and what would be a real market success of this meanwhile space, is that it doesn't just disappear when we come to redevelop Aberfeldy Street. We would love to be in a position where these new fledgling businesses actually grow to a point that they are sustainable and can migrate into the new development and become part of the permanent story, not just the meanwhile story. So it's we're at a very exciting phase of this project, with 3 new businesses taking occupation in the last month. We have 3 more premises which we're bringing up into usable standard, and we've got half a dozen or more existing businesses that are really beginning to establish themselves and come forward as a proper amenity for the local neighbourhood.
Thank you. So how do we continue to develop? As you say, we're 10 years into this program, and we're a place in progress, and we've got some way to go. So looking north of the site, the remainder of the master plan is we take these place pillars, and how do we interpret that and deliver that back into a master plan? And we've got a series of threads here. So the Live Well pillar, supporting our Healthy Streets initiative and how we create opportunities to access the outdoors and knit together the areas of green space and blue space that we benefit from in this part of East London. The Enterprise Yard, again, building on that, local businesses, creatively made. The Community Lane, celebrating community, providing a quiet and residential space that's car-free and allows people to utilise the spaces between the buildings for active play and enjoyment and meet their neighbours. And the High Street, the commercial heart of this, which we've started that process already, seeded it, and incubating those local businesses to really deliver some great offers to this emerging new community here. So
Ben, I'm afraid that's your time. So I just need that killer final line.
Everything we do here is led by the residents, and that's been the theme right from the start. And this partnership is built on engagement and collaboration with our residents.
Can I just reinforce that? Just reinforce that. We've just held a local ballot for the next stage of our regeneration. We've had a 91% turnout in that ballot and a 94% yes vote supporting the next stages of regeneration. People are at the heart of making this place.
Great, thanks both. Can you unshare your screen, and I'm going to invite the judges to turn on their cameras and give us their questions and feedback. Let's kick off with you, Frances, this time. Do you have a question for Ben and Malcolm?
Yeah, it was a fascinating presentation. Thank you. I am very interested in your final point about how the different methods you use to engage with the community and also the existing community, and then when new people arrive, how you sort of embed them within that new mixed community. What ongoing sort of curation and support? You talked about the mentoring program. Is that a temporary thing? Like, how does that become a permanent thing? And you talked about the neighbourhood hub. How much is that sort of self-supporting, or does that need sort of curation and management? So I just wondered if you could talk about all those activities.
Yeah, I'll just start with it. So you made the point there about how we integrate these communities. I think it's very important that with new people coming into the new buildings that we're creating spaces where the new and the old communities can share. So the public spaces, the public realm, the civic spaces, the commercial, and some of the infrastructure we're putting in, along with the GP surgery, the pharmacy, the relocation, the neighbourhood hub, are those areas where people will naturally mix and meet their neighbours from different parts of the community. That these services are not just for the new buildings, they're there for the wider community, the neighbours that we're in. We're very much understood that we are part of an existing community, and it's about providing those services beyond just the new residents. So creating those spaces, those natural spaces where we share with our neighbours. Mark, if you want to talk about the neighbourhood hub, and obviously Poplar's track record there.
Yeah, so consultation and engagement has been at the heart of what Poplar Harker do for many, many years, and Aberfeldy is no different. So, and it's about listening. It's about listening and engaging and really giving residents an opportunity to properly input into the process. I think you can pay lip service to that, but it's for us, it really is about giving them a real platform to give us their ideas and input into the design process. COVID has been challenging for us. You know, normally we would do that by door-to-door engagement and events, and we obviously had the COVID lockdown came in the middle of the resident ballot, so we had to think very quickly in terms of how we changed that engagement strategy and how we still kept residents at the heart of it. And it would have been very easy to stop doing it, and we did consider putting things on ice and waiting, but we got into the process, and residents very clearly wanted us to carry on. So we put in place a series of measures using WhatsApp and online tools, and we did a Planning for Real event that was based on a kit that we put together, that we posted out to every single resident, and then gave them an opportunity to input into the design process that way. And we actually found that created a higher level of engagement. We have some fantastic video footage of families getting together around the dining room table with these kits and really debating about what they wanted from their local community, and you know, debating in how stuff they wanted was going to be paid for. You know, they clearly wanted improved green spaces, better connectivity, an improved local retail offer. But they also realized that has to be paid for. So you know, there was healthy debate around density of residential development and where that should best be located. So, you know, and we have a huge amount of really valuable data that's come out of that engagement process that will feed into the master plan development, and will put residents' input at the core of what we do.
Julian, I'm going to bring you in now.
And Malcolm, hi. I'll be honest, until I received the submission pack, I hadn't heard of Aberfeldy Village. So I did actually drive, I apologise, I drove there on Sunday morning because it was chucking it down with rain. It was 7:30 in the morning, and I was a little bit puzzled by the submission, to be honest, but your presentations made it a bit clearer, because the submission gave the impression it was just about the high street part of the project. And I'll be honest, when I read the submission, I thought, oh no, this is a kind of submission illustrated with photos of Hackney hipsters doing things in a part of East London. And I just didn't quite get it. The last slide you showed, I think, was the really important one. And I think when the judges deliberate, we need to decide, is it the whole thing you're submitting, or is it just Aberfeldy Street? Now, I thought it was quite interesting. It's highly Instagrammable, what you have done as a meanwhile piece on Aberfeldy Street, we were encouraged to engage with the residents or the locals on our trips around site. At 7:30 on a wet Sunday morning, there was one person enjoying a smoke on the balcony, so I left him to it. But what I really wanted to understand is, it's a bit like a kind of grit in an oyster. If Aberfeldy High Street in its meanwhile condition is so successful, and it's quite a contrast to the built environment of the new buildings that you are building, do you see an opportunity to actually permanently integrate the sort of built fabric of the high street into your master plan? Because when I looked on the Meanwhile website, it says it's for letting 2019 to 2022. So I wondered, could you just say a little bit more about your thoughts of the high street as part of the completed master plan?
Just before you do, I'll clarify. It's the place in progress, so it's the whole scheme, but it's the moment it's at right now. But go ahead.
It was just that the submission just had lots of photos of people, and it wasn't really clear what was happening. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And the Meanwhile space is about creating and looking after those businesses and allowing a time for experimentation, and responding to the engagement that we had about the sorts of businesses and offers that residents would like to see, and give them a chance to engage and present their offer to the community and see whether they're successful or not. I think the built form is not really relevant to that, to what the high street can be. I think it's more about how it feels. You walk down at the ground plane and you feel the offer from those residents, and the businesses, what they deliver will make that place, and how that space is used, not so much the built form. Malcolm?
Yeah, it's definitely not all about the Meanwhile space. You know, this is a point in time, but as I said in the presentation, the dream here is that we can take those businesses that have formed during this phase, and that hopefully that we nurture and support, and turn them into sustainable businesses that meet the needs of the local neighbourhood and can grow into the permanent development. So I'm
going to stop you there because I want to get a question in from Catherine, and you can append another thought onto that. But Catherine, come.
Thank you, and I'll be really quick. I'm also utterly intrigued by the high street element of your proposals. Just seeing the images of the colour just kind of fills me with joy, to be honest. How did you come to those ideas with the community to do something so different, I guess?
Yeah, so we worked with Jan Katten Architects, and we wanted something that was firmly rooted in the community, and we have a significant Bangladeshi population in that part of town, and they form a significant part of our resident population. So we arrived at that idea again through consultation with residents, and the patterns and the colours come from a Bangladeshi tradition of utilising remnants of clothing and to develop designs. And we invited the community to submit their ideas and remnants of cloth and pictures that they had, and gave that to the architects and said, please go away and make something fantastic with all of those ideas. And that's what they came back with. And I have to confess, when Jan Katten presented that idea to Ben and I, but both of us were slightly taken aback, and in terms of its boldness. But I think somebody said, Julian, I think you said that, or Catherine, I think you said it fills you with joy, and it does. When you turn that street corner now, it's gone from a drab high street, failing high street with really no offer to the community at all, to something which is exciting and joyous and a portent of hopefully things to come, I think.
On that bright note, we have to leave it here, but just thank you very much to our presenters and our judges. Judges, if you want to switch off your cameras, I'm going to invite our next presenter to join. So thanks very much. I'll just introduce you. This is Ben Ruston, Head of Development, and Charlotte Gee, Development Manager for Places for People. I'm going to reappear at 9 minutes. You know the drill. Best of luck. I'll just stick around while you share your screen, or imagine you have a great.
Excellent. Okay. Good morning. It's great to be here. We are Places for People. I'm Charlotte Gee, Development Manager, and this is Ben Ruston, Head of Development. When we were putting together this presentation about a place in progress, we decided to make a short film and ask the people that live, work and play at Brooklands Square what they thought about where they lived.
We've been working with Places for People since 2007, and it's fantastic to be able to come down here and see the reality and 3 dimensions of all the stuff that we worked on all those years ago. The thing is that we both have a long-term interest in the development and the success of the development, and they have the same infrastructure first approach to new development that the council likes to endorse and encourage. Through the tariff mechanism that we have here in Milton Keynes, we're able to ensure that social infrastructure provision keeps pace with housing development, and therefore we've been able to provide school places, health centres, play areas as it's rolled forward.
So when I arrived here at Brooklands Square, there was nothing here, and we've developed the project. A lot of it is complete, still a lot to do, but a lot of it is complete. And it's nice to see families moving in, making it their homes. And once we have completed, I'm sure it's going to continue to prosper and become a vibrant, living, breathing community.
I run the sales and marketing suite here at Brooklands Square. The square itself is full of life. This is where the shops and the restaurants and the activity is really happening. I believe this is a fantastic place for you to live, and there's lots of different options and ways to access these homes.
Living in Brooklands is brilliant. We just love it. It's just enough space for my children to play around in front of the house. The gym is just there. I'm registered to the gym. We used not to like walking, but it's beautiful scenery to walk, and now my family do a lot of walking. Lidl is just 20 steps from my house. It's just beautiful. We just love living in Brooklands.
We recently opened here at the heart of our commercial centre and Brooklands Square. With the tremendous support that we received so far, this made my dream come true.
I'm responsible for the infrastructure across Brooklands. We're here today in Lawty Park, which is part of the green space of Brooklands Square. Brooklands Square is the heart of Brooklands. This is just one of the green spaces that I'm really proud to be handing over to our key stakeholders of the Parks Trust and Milton Keynes Council very, very soon. So behind me you can see the guys in the background who are just completing the works on the next public open space to go over to the council and the Parks Trust as well. The fences are coming down, and I just can't wait to see families, kids all running around really enjoying this space because it's fantastic.
Excellent. So that's the video Charlotte introduced, and that gives a flavour of exactly what the square is looking like at the moment.
I can just move on a slide. There you go. Right, I just want to add a bit of context to what Brooklands is about and the Brooklands Square. So just briefly, Brooklands is the sustainable urban extension to Milton Keynes, one of the most successful new towns in the UK. We're at 2,500 houses as per the outline consent. And then we've got the square, and the square is kind of our town centre. This is the hub, and this is really where our place in progress is focused. Whilst we're incredibly proud of what we've done over the rest of the Brooklands development, and we really just want to focus here about the square and what we've achieved there. Brooklands Square and the core area, this is our town centre and this is our place in progress. It's already been 4 years in the making. As you probably heard from our site manager, Sunny, he's just coming to the end of constructing the core parts of the square at the moment. We've got 2 more phases to go, and one starts on site literally next week, and that'll be a further 38 apartments. And then we've got another development coming forward in partnership with some other partners, which will build a gymnastics centre and table tennis centre and some more apartments too. And I just want to really add the emphasis here that behind this project of the square, there's a much wider team than just Charlotte and I that are here today. We've got the development team, we've got the construction team we saw, we've got our sales team, and also more importantly, we've got our placemaking team. And this is really where we as Places of People have a legacy angle and involvement to ensure we're here for the long term. And in fact, we'll be retaining the freehold of the entire square, and we have a vested interest therefore as landlord and caretaker with our partners, as mentioned in the video. I think just want to emphasise but how the square has happened, and I'm going to say that despite setbacks, and we've had setbacks with delays and all the complicated issues you have with building mixed-use developments, but also obviously more recently the delays of COVID. And I think actually it's testament to the team and the work we've done here to make this place happen. So for example, we've assisted our commercial tenants to move in, and we saw Olga from the gym, and we've worked with her during these last 6 months to actually make that happen and work out a way how we can do the fitting out and bring the commercial uses to life. We've also helped tenants move in, and we've had to work out how to get our affordable tenants into our affordable apartments and working that through with them and giving the home that is ready, so ensuring that it was carpeted and floored for them to go in, especially during these tough times. And then lastly, also how we worked with purchasers that bought properties as well, and doing things like we've done things like FaceTime to do home demonstrations and actually talk people around their plots in a safe and COVID compliant way. So we've really had to work hard during these last few months to still make this place happen. And I think therefore PFP, we're continuing to support our place in progress at Brooklands Square. We have a long-term commitment to Brooklands and the square, as I said, retaining that ownership and overseeing its sustainable management into the future. We are the management agent, we are the freeholder, we are the landlord, we are a tenant as well. And it's really important that we have that vested interest to continue beyond even just finishing the bricks and mortar, that the place continues to progress. And I think actually just from really a personal point at the end, that I think this nomination and indeed the Pineapple Awards is a celebration of what our industry is doing and what we can do, where we can work together, including demonstrating through these hard times more recently in making places happen and making the place happen for everyone, and to also therefore improve the lives of the people that live there. I'm going to wrap up on that stuff done, so by all means I'll hand back to you, Christine, and pick up from here.
Brilliant, thank you so much. I am now going to ask you to unshare your screen and invite the judges to join us on the stage. Brilliant. There's Julian and Catherine and Francis. Great. Well, Julian, why don't you kick off this time? Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. And apologies if you get any noise in the background. My next door neighbours decided to start doing their DIY, but if it gets too bad, I'll mute you. I'll be honest. I didn't know this scheme. I think I know parts of Milton Keynes very well. Again, my question is really is that you've focused on the square, but it's part of this neighbourhood, and I think it's quite interesting because maybe compared to the 2 schemes we've just been looking at, you're dealing with an urban form which is very, very different here. It's sort of 2- and 3-storey houses, and how do you make a sense of place using apartment buildings. It's trying to get some proportions to it. But looking at the video, it started, and I wasn't quite sure whether I was looking at a CGI or a real film, I'll be honest.
It's a real thing.
It is a real film, I realise that. There's something about the square itself, and the narrator said full of life, and it just struck me it was full of cars. Now, I know that's a particular challenge in the context of Milton Keynes, but you know, how successfully do you think you have dealt with that particular challenge?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Milton Keynes has a very generous car parking policy. A city built around the car, inevitably it does. And the Milton Keynes residents are quite passionate about their cars. I think if you look at the aerial shot where you've got the square splits in half. So half of it is a car park and half of it actually is an open area where we've got space for, in fact, funny enough, we're working on a farmer's market to come in. But actually we own the freehold and we'll retain the freehold of that, and the car park is private. So we will have the ability to close the car park for events and therefore use, it's almost an acre, the actual hard standing area, as I suppose, a public arena to run events on. And actually, because therefore we can control that, we can manage that. So I think that's how we've built the adaptable space, but complied with the planning policy. Or else what we would have had to have done is build a car park, perhaps separately or to one side of the square. And we felt actually it's not convenient for the users and to encourage them to come in.
And it gives the square a flow. There's movement on the square all the time. There's people walking around, and there are cars moving around as well. We listened to what the retailers also talked about in our consultation, and they wanted, as a local centre, people to be able to pull up, park their car, get their hair cut, get back in their car, and move off on site. And it works. It works. People park there for a very short time, get what they need, pop in. And if you're going to the public open space, people tend to park further away from the square and access that, or walk to it from the rest of the scheme.
Yeah, it's a good balance.
I'm going to bring you in, Francis, but I have a feeling you also might mention the cars.
I did come and visit, and I did drive, and it was very convenient to park in the square. But I did feel a lot of the spaces felt car dominated. The streets feel quite wide. It was a fairly windy day when I was there, and having the width of parking down one side kind of adds to that width. And then around the green park, which is really lovely, some of the houses feel quite far apart because there's a double driveway in between each house, and on the other side there's the carport underneath. So I just wondered how, I'm sure you went through a lot of options of testing how to integrate parking, if that's planning policy and it's also what people are going to live there want. Maybe you could talk about the different options of integrating the car and why you chose the design options that you have.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're working within the framework of Milton Keynes parking policies, and as I say, they are very generous. In fact, they have a minimum parking standards, not maximum. So they have a complete reverse. So it is quite a challenge, and I think some of the issues we've had with parking is obviously it's created quite a hard landscape, and where we have done, we've tried to incorporate as many trees as possible. In fact, actually, we've had an issue with the design of it. We're trying to incorporate more trees, and actually we're having to take some out because of visibility splays and some of the requirements of the highways and safety audit, which is very important, but it's trying to get the right balance. How do you get greenery into a car park? In terms of parking solutions, yeah, I mean, we've got obviously on plot, we've got to rear a plot. We've also got some drive-through parking courts. You probably saw on the aerials, some of the apartment blocks have actually got small parking courts that are drive-through. And then we've also utilised things like car parking spaces under fogs. So we've got flat over garages and various things like that. So we've tried to hide it wherever we can. But again, because of the requirement to do it, inevitably there'd be some parking. And just picking up on the wide street, this is a concept called city streets. And actually this is the evolution, if you know Milton Keynes, of the grid system. Grid system's wonderful. You can zoom around the city and cross it in rush hour in 20 minutes. Actually, what they wanted to do in taking on Brooklands and the extensions to Milton Keynes is how do you get the hybrid of a street and sort of a suburban dual carriageway system. And actually that's what we've ended up with city streets. So they are deliberately wide. They've got generous footpaths each side. They've got parking bays each side. They've got a dual carriageway capacity in each direction. So you can have a bus lane and a car route. So eventually, as the city will evolve, and this comes back to good design and future proofing, when the urban density gets to a mass and things move on, we can have a dedicated bus route or a tram system and a dedicated road as well. So yes, I mean, that's partly where we've tried to work with the council to design, not just now, but into decades.
Catherine, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, cars. Just I'll try and move us away from cars, but not wholly. You talked about the green spaces, and then we've already touched on the fact that the square itself feels quite hard and car dominated. What I'm interested in is how you will, or whether you want to get people to dwell in that square, because as you say, people are pulling up in their car, popping into the dry cleaners or whatever, and then popping away again. I'm interested in how those commercial units meet the ground and engage with that space. And do you see people dwelling in that very hard space, or are you seeing that as very much a pop in and out, walk through space? I might have led you with that question, sorry.
We've certainly tried to create a space where people want to dwell, and we think that that's sort of moving to the next phase of Brooklands Square as we begin things like Ben's intimated, like the market, food festivals, the ability to close off the square and make it a non-car park for a weekend, and to bring the community into the square. I mean, what we've heard during the COVID lockdown and the Facebook and the social media around Brooklands Square as a place is how fantastic it has been not to have to get in the car, to have had everything on their doorstep, the public open space accessibility, the medical hub that's there, the accessibility to, I think, is it 90 hectares of
90 acres.
90 acres of public open space on their doorstep, the ability to have things like Starship deliveries, which are robot deliveries to your front door. So if you're shielding and were unable to go out in the COVID environment at its height, you can order from the local co-op your bread, your milk, your paper, and this robot will deliver it to your front door. Fibre to the home in every home in Brooklands Square, and actually to the 2,500 houses in Brooklands, enable people to work at home, from home, super fast speeds. I think the square is at the beginning of becoming a place. All signs are that the community is leading itself. We're not having to create a community there. They're doing that for themselves. COVID has, I think, helped that.
Yeah, good. No, and actually, just a brilliant example of that is where Charlotte's worked with the gym, and in fact the gym operator said, look, actually we'd like to run exercise classes in the square, is that okay? And we've said, actually that's a really good idea, let's figure out how we can make that happen. So the gym are now going to run their classes, or some of their classes, outside in the square. So I think that's bringing that people and dwelling. So yeah, you can do your aerobics in the square if you like.
And I think we do envisage people dwelling in the square. It's a quite hard environment, I understand that, but it is certainly the heart of Brooklands and has become a place known for people to meet up.
Well, that's your time. So I just have to thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you to the judges. We have another 3 candidates waiting to present. So actually, judges, if you don't mind putting your cameras off, and we're going to say goodbye to Places for People. Thank you very much and best of luck.
Bye-bye.
So that concludes the first half of the presentations for Places in Progress, shortlisted for the Pineapple Awards 2020. We'll be back here tomorrow for the second half, and the winners will be announced at our celebration on Friday, the 13th of November from 3:30 to 4:30, when we find out who will win the Golden Pineapple.